You're watching Honest E with Melanie and Kimberly. I'm Kimberly Ann.
And I'm Melanie Ann, and we are here to talk about things that are hard to talk about.
So there's so many issues right now that are affecting our world. We thought that discussing them would be an easy way to get different sides of a view of something that's difficult to talk about.
And by doing this, we hope to discover new ways of looking at things.
So that having been said, there are a lot of issues that are going on right now. And so one of the things that we wanted to talk about together with other people are a lot of the issues going on with racism. So we decided that if we asked each other what was our first experience with racism, maybe we could bridge a gap between our two worlds that are the same and equally distant.
That is such a great question, Kimberly. And I think that my interpretation of the question is going to be really different from your interpretation of the question. So do you want to go first to answer it?
Sure. So my very first experience with racism, I think I might have been 3. And my father was in the Army. So at that time we lived at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I only remember it because it was a traumatic experience. And it's one of those stories that went on and on. You know, your family talks about it, so you remember it only because they've talked about it so much. But as there were only 2 Black families who lived on our block, our last name was Black, their last name was Brown, ironically. And me and the little girl hid under the bed because we were playing hide and seek. And as we hid under the bed, we thought, wow, we're doing a great job hiding under the bed. No one can find us. Well, the problem on the other side of that was nobody could find us. And living in North Carolina in 68, 69, in 1971, it was a big deal that 2 little Black girls went missing. And we kept hiding under the bed. I don't know how long we were under there because, you know, when your little time is, you know, you have no idea. But we were under there long enough. And our parents believed that we had been abducted by the Klan. So as we hid longer and longer and longer, they got more and more convinced that we had been abducted by the Klan. So that was my first experience. Fast forward later, I had yet another experience in kindergarten. So these are all, you know, pre-age of understanding. But by that time, we'd moved to West Point, New York. Now we're in the North, you know, where things are better. And the bathrooms were set up, and I remember this one vividly. The bathrooms were set up like for barracks. You know, it was probably a barrack that had been converted, now that I'm thinking about it, into a preschool. But there was no side walls to the bathroom. So you could only go in, girls at one time, boys at one time. I went in the bathroom, went to the bathroom. Little boy came in. I was, no, you can't come in. Girls in the bathroom. And he opened the door and peed on me because I was in the bathroom. And he was like, you know, you shouldn't be in here, nigger, and peed on me. And that was that. So my experiences started quickly. You know, my mom had to desegregate the school when we were in, I think it was Richmond, Virginia we were in. She called ahead, you know, Captain Black's coming with his daughter, Donna, and she'll be in preschool. And they're like, great. And then when Nancy Black showed up Black, Donna was not welcome to come to the school. So there's been many instances. So those are my few short ones. Those are my early ones. Yeah. You know, it gets worse as time goes on, of course. But when you think of racism and the experience experienced in your life with racism?
Yeah, so the first thing that came to my mind when you asked me this question, actually I don't know what came to my mind right at first when we talked about this before, but when I was probably about 6, so again we're talking like early 1970s. I live in, I guess, you know, a pretty white neighborhood. And a black family moved in next door. The mom was a stepmom and she was white, but the rest of the family was a boy and a girl, and the dad, and they were a black family with the white stepmom. And we, as the kids, were like, cool, more kids to play with. Period. That was it. Just more kids to play with, because there were tons of kids on the block. And, most of the kids were white. I'm sure some of the kids were, other mixed races here and there, whatever. But it was the early 70s. It was probably a bigger deal to the adults that a black family moved in, but for the kids, it was just more kids to play with. And they were older than I was. The girl is about 4 years older than me, and I think her brother was maybe a year or two older than that, if I remember right. So I was about 6 and she was like 10-ish. And she came over and we were great friends. She was super, super tall and I am super, super small. So it was probably, one of those sight gags to see us playing together. And I do remember playing hopscotch with her and she would always yell at me that I didn't draw the hopscotch boxes big enough because she had big feet, because she was really tall. But anyway, we were really good friends. We played outside all the time. We walked to school together. We didn't, the fact that there was a difference in our race was absolutely not an issue. Until one time she was over playing and my grandmother happened to be over here watching us or whatever. And my grandma was born in 1900, not well educated. She probably had an 8th grade education or whatever. And my friend and I were playing in my bedroom, which is in the back of the house. The door was closed for whatever reason. And she came and she knocked on the door and she opened the door. She goes, "You can't play in this room. Open the door." And I said, "Why?" And she goes, "Because you can't play in here with the colored girl." And I was like, "Why? And what?" And she's like, "You can't play in here with the colored girl. You have to keep the door open." I don't know what she thought was going to happen. I don't know what she thought this girl was going to do to me. I don't know how my friend responded to this, being 4 years older than me. So I was 6 or 7. She was, 10 or 11. But I didn't understand why. I was like, what? Like, what do you think is going to happen in the bedroom? It's a girl. It's a friend. We're just playing. So I think that was probably my first experience. I never knew what she thought was going to happen in there. And that friend and I never discussed it afterwards because we were too little to discuss it. If I asked her now, she probably wouldn't remember that happened. Although I'd be curious to know what, if anything, she remembers or felt about that happening. But that would be my first experience.
You still know her? Can you still find her?
We are still friends on Facebook. Yeah, I found her a few years back, or she found me. I don't remember. Maybe she found me because I had looked for her for years because she was such a great friend, and her brother was really cute, and her dad was Big Jim. I mean, this guy was huge, but super sweet. And they moved around the neighborhood and then left a few years. I mean, they were around for a while and then they left. I don't know why they left. I think they went to Texas or something. So yeah, I am still in touch with her. I did actually message her to try and find out exactly what year that was because I don't know. I think I was 6. So, 75, 70, whatever, 74, 75, somewhere in there. I think I knew her in 1st grade. So yeah, 70, what was that? 74? Long time ago. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, so at this point, like I wouldn't think twice about, my kids have friends that are everything. And there aren't ones that aren't allowed to play in their bedrooms. I mean, whatever, well, now they're teenagers, so no girls in there.
You got to keep the door open.
Yeah, you got to keep the door open for the girls. But I mean, it never would have occurred to me to tell them that they could or couldn't have one, particular friend over because of their color. I mean, maybe because of bad behavior or something, but not because of, because all, like growing up, my kids' friends they're from everywhere. I mean, all over the world. So,
That's interesting. So we have both had similar experiences. Well, not so similar, but had an experience at a young age.
Yeah.
Little bitty kids with no understanding of what that meant. But then we have to kind of ask ourselves, does that mean that racism is taught?
I would have to say absolutely. Absolutely. Like anything else. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I also think that as the generations go on, I have less racism in myself than my parents did, and my kids are less. And I hate to say even that, to admit that anybody's racist at all, but it's like I know better than my parents did. My parents knew better than their parents did. My kids certainly know far better than I do. So I'm learning from them.
House of babes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm learning from them. I mean, I have conversations, especially with my younger child, about a lot of things, and he is swift to put me in my place, which I appreciate, because I only know what I thought was wrong in the 80s or the 70s or now, based, there were lots of things that I was told as a kid that I didn't understand why that was wrong, because I didn't think it was. But whatever my parents had learned, they were telling me. Luckily, I didn't.
As children, we do as our parents tell us to do.
Right.
I mean, that's just, that's
right.
just the way it goes.
Right. Now, luckily, I didn't translate that back down to my kids, because enough time has passed, or I've learned enough, or I thought that what they were doing was wrong, that I didn't, bring those racist ideas to my own kids. I don't think. I mean, I know I didn't, because.
Well, all we can do is not think that we did. And if we think that we didn't, then we've done that much less of the infection. You know, I when I got to college, I had a button, and I wish I still had it. It was a black and white button, and it said, "Racism is an illness. Are you sick?"
Good one.
So it's less infecting the next generation. And the more we do that, I think the better the children will come out. I think it's wrong to say you don't see color. If you don't see color, that's not good.
And you're kind of missing the point.
You got to see color. You have to see the differences, but embracing the differences, loving. I think
that's one of the things that I think people go, try to say, I'm not racist, I don't see color, and I've been one to say, like, I see everybody as the same, but that's not right, because we're not the same. I mean, fundamentally, yes, we stripped our skin off inside, our heartbeat's the same and our bones are the same, but we're not the same. I mean, we have different experiences, different cultural experiences, different family experiences. And you could say that about everybody. Like, everybody's not the same as everybody else. And that's what makes us beautiful and interesting. And so you should see the color, because you should say, like, that person's got something different than I have, and cool. Like, I don't want all my friends to be just like me. That would be boring. A lot of both. And it's, that's what makes things interesting, to not be exactly the same, but to find some common ground, for sure. So we found some common ground in wanting to have these conversations, because it's good to talk.
It's good to talk, and it's good to be honest. And it's good to have open communication. And that's one of the things that might just change the world.
First step.
It's a step one in the right direction. Everyone wants to ask, well, what are you doing? Well, you know what? This is what we're going to do. We're going to have honest conversations about things that matter, and get different perspectives from both of us on what we think is going on right now in 2020 in the world. There's so much to pick from.
So much. Yeah. So if anybody out there has any questions for us, we have an email address. It is honestediscussions@gmail.com. So you can email us, and we'll either answer your emails, or we will bring your questions on to our next chat. So thanks for coming today. This is great, and we hope to see